Should tell us. So Mark's going to monitor the chat throughout the meeting. So if you've got any questions, if you type them in there, he usually responds directly, but also will raise things that he thinks that we won't cover during the presentation. And this session is very much an introduction to working with us. It's not the mentor training that's coming. I met yesterday with all of the ITT coordinators, and some of you are on here, which is lovely. Thank you very much. And went through their role. And this really is just to get through the basics of what mentoring is, how it will work. Then the actual training for mentoring in depth starts on Thursday. A reminder that all sessions are recorded so that you can watch them on playback if need be. I'm going to share my little screen thing with you. I think I have to share sound as well for this to work, so that I don't forget to say anything that's important. So first of all, obviously, welcome and thank you for working with us. You are really the engine house of the whole program. Mentoring is really, really important. And so understanding the MTED program, the mentoring part of what you're doing is really vital. And so I hope to give you some overviews of how you fit into the overall scheme and the support networks that surround everyone. So I'm going to kind of welcome you, introduce you to our teams virtually to start with. So Michael, who's on here, is our primary lead for Teaching Kent and our team, and oversees all of the primary schools and primary placements, and has done for a number of years now. And he has a couple of people joining me on his team, which is great. So someone's unmuted, Mike. Can you just have a look, see where the rustling is from? And he's joined by Macy and Leslie for September, which will be great. So the large number of trainees that we've got will be well supported. The title has changed to lead mentor. So Michael is the senior lead mentor because he looks after the primary phase, and Michelle Taylor, who is currently at Thomas Aveling School, will become our senior lead mentor for the secondary phase and is joined by Lorna supporting. Those that know us well will see that we have a new member of our admin team who recently joined. Pet has joined with Mel and Angela to support with all the administration and work incredibly hard to onboard trainees at the moment. We are looking to take another person into that team as well in September. So we've got lots of support to make sure that all the bits that take the weight off of schools and mentor hopefully will be in place. We're easy to get hold of. You can use our name at Teaching Kent or Sussex Teacher Training, depending on which area you're in. It's the same team. It just has a different name, and all the emails go to exactly the same places. So you can contact us with our first name at any of those, and we'll get back nice and quickly. The TES Institute team, you don't really need to remember all of these because they will make themselves known as and when needed. But this gives you an idea of the amount of support. So aside from your tutors, so remember every trainee has a tutor. The tutor comes in 5 times during the year, and they spend 3 hours per trainee per visit. So that takes a lot of weight off of our schools, because actually they're the ones that write the reports. They're the ones that recommend for QTS. They're the ones that make sure everything's working well and supports the mentor in the in-school role, the kind of day-to-day role. So there's a whole swathe of people underneath here as well. And we're on track for about 500 trainees across all of the TES partnerships, of which we're one. Well, with 2, we're Sussex Teacher Training as well. So you'll get to know Kelly Campbell really well, I would have thought, because she will be leading on much of the training that's done. She is the mastermind, if you like, behind a lot of the courses and all of the programs that are written. And then Jess Grillo will be looking after the postgraduate teaching apprenticeships. You've got Katie Hobbs involved as well, and all of the other people. So there's a lot of people supporting. So as well as your tutor, you have this background team at TES who are there to help and guide too. Wrong way. So a little bit about Teaching Kent and Sussex Teacher Training. If you've not worked with us, there's more than 200 schools working together now to recruit trainees. We have recruited about 250 trainees for next year across both partnerships. We intend to grow Sussex quite a lot next year as well, which would be great. We have been around for about 9 years, and our mission has always been to kind of provide a pragmatic teacher training partnership. And what do I mean by pragmatic? Well, it's complicated and often there's a lot of paperwork involved that's unnecessary. So we have worked hard to slim things down for everyone involved. So for instance, for trainees, they don't have portfolios because that's an unnecessary load of work. And all that happens, as you know, if your trainees are on routes that have portfolios, is that in the last few weeks, they'll ask you to write emails to prove that they've spoken to parents nicely and things like that. So we've got rid of all of that stuff. There aren't huge numbers of forms to fill in. We want to really embrace out the knowledge and skills of our mentors and schools to bring trainees on without weighing them down with lots of paperwork. There's a little bit of administration which I'll go through in this session, but it's certainly a lot more sensible than many other programs that are there. We intend to keep recruiting for next year. So if you for 2025, so if you are working with us this year, we'd love to keep working with you, and we'll be working hard to recruit trainees in this really difficult climate for finding teachers in the first place. Hopefully the new government will make some of that easier with us. Maybe some of the rhetoric will help. Maybe some of the attitudes towards teaching changing might help, and also some of the funding might help. So we're keeping an eye to see how that's going to work, and we'll let you know as we go. So this is the mission from TES Institute about mentoring and what mentors, what their view of mentoring is. And I will be sending this presentation, by the way, afterwards. So you don't need to write everything down. We're going to send this and a recording of this too. So you'll be able to watch and refer back to it. And I'll send a summary email, which has the basic main points in it for you too. So the mission statement is really simple. We believe in the power of great mentors. We've worked with TES for a long time now and can vouch that they really do but believe in that. And they are keen to listen as well to everyone's feedback and have adapted the program many times at our behest from feedback from our schools and feedback from our program team. I'm not going to read it all to you because you can do that yourself. But there are some bits to pick out here. So in the mission, the first one's really important about fostering great consistency in the practice of mentors. So there'll be a lot of work done to make sure that everyone's doing the same thing and providing the minimum expectations and are doing things really well. And so we want a consistent approach. So this is part of that. We've invited you to a meeting. We're explaining what mentoring is going to involve. And then you've got a training program that does the same. Your tutor will come along. And if there's something not quite right, you've not understood it, or you're not sure, they'll help you align. So there's lots of support to make sure that everyone's coherent for the experience of trainee teachers. We also want to raise the profile of mentoring and provide a framework for the development, professional development of the mentors or aspiring ones. That's why the MTED program is put together, the training program for MTED for mentors. And that's been praised by the DFE, the old DFE, as well as Ofsted, and was used by the DFE to send out as an exemplar. So it's a really good program. And those who have gone through it will hopefully be able to vouch that you found it a well put together program, slightly tweaked for the new 2024 expectations. And we also want to help build a culture of coaching. And what's been lovely is I've met with a few schools, and the coaching approach that TES have opted for is reflected in many schools' approaches to supporting other staff. So we actually think it just builds and supports the coaching training that's taking place in many schools as it is. Okay. So there are kind of four parts to this. First of all, in this induction, the first is introduction to us, which we've done. A little look at the ITT and mentor curriculums, the what to do before September, and also TES Learn. So you're going to get a login and told how to log into TES Learn, which is the bit where you do your mentor training, basically. Handily, it's not that you have to travel anywhere. It's not at a fixed time. The ongoing things are actually quite useful because you can do the training when and as you like, which is quite helpful. Gives you a bit more freedom. So let's start to look at a little bit about who everyone is involved, because there's a lot of language here going around and it's hard to kind of pin where everyone fits in. So I've kind of separated it into three areas that support the trainees. So if we look first of all at the provider, so that's the TES Institute, fully accredited provider. They have several people involved in the team. First of all, is they have their own lead mentors. So the people I showed you on the picture, most of those are lead mentors, and their job is to support mentors and trainees in schools. They were called all sorts of things before, program directors and so on, but the new language is lead mentors. And you can see they're under the Teaching Kent and Sussex Teacher Training, and we're a lead partner. That we have partnership lead mentors. So that's Michael and the rest of the team. Going back to the TES Institute, you have lots of learning support available. So we have lots of things that you can rely on if things don't go well for a trainee. So I quite often get asked, what happens if it doesn't go well? Well, first thing I'd say is let us know. Even the small stuff, we'll be really delighted to hear things are going really well, but we also need to know when things aren't. So if you find that there's some professional conduct issues, if you find that there are some issues with adhering to the program or not meeting deadlines, or things that you're not happy with, let us know. We have a team here to support and step in. And the support can look at lots of different, in lots of different ways. So it might just be that it's informal support. So we have a chat with them or a meeting with them, and we would include you in all of that. It might be that we need more of a more formal support plan around them. So we have things called focus support plans, FSPs, which are short, sharp shocks, really. They're 3 weeks to sort wobbly wheels out, small problems. But we also have calls for concern procedures. So when we're really concerned with the trainee, we have a bigger program which lasts 4 weeks, which is much more bigger booted. It's for when we really are concerned. And at all stages, we will include schools and TES Institute, the provider, in those plans as well. We bring everyone around the trainee. We would rarely ask a school to lead a program because we know you're busy. So quite often it will be that our team or the TES Institute will lead it, depending on the nature of the support plan. But you would be fully informed and come along to the meetings if you're available as well. So we don't leave you to run plans. We also have full occupational health available, and we have stress testing available, and we also have counselling. So we will give you more details about those things and how to access them as you start the year. And we'll also be running the inductions over the next week with trainees in Kent and Sussex, and we'll explain to them the support mechanisms available as well, so that they're not, upset when they go have some support put in place, that they see that we genuinely want them to do well. And then the other big element, obviously, from the TES Institute is your tutor. And the tutors will be in very close contact with you. They will be checking the online work of the trainee. And if they aren't really keeping up to pace, or if things aren't going well, they'll let you know, and they'll let us know, so that everyone's involved. Sometimes schools are able to say, look, we know you love us and you're doing great things in school, but you do need to make sure you're doing your online work, because that feeds into your practice improving in school. And if you're not in line, you've then created a backlog, and then you've got to catch up, and it's pain for everyone, and especially them. So the tutors will be someone very useful to you. Then there's the partnerships. So there's the partnership lead mentors, myself, the director, and then also the admin team. So we're here to help you with any issues that you've got. Our job is to kind of make sure everything runs smoothly between everyone, and to recruit the trainees as well and find placement schools. In the partnership school, there are different names for this role, but ITT coordinator is the one we tend to use. But sometimes they're called professional tutors, or sometimes ITT lead, but it's the person that's in charge of the trainees. Their job is to support you, to make sure that mentors are looking after the trainees, and that the trainees are behaving themselves and also being exposed to whole school life. So you might be working in a department or a year group and not really know beyond that ideal people to signpost trainees for different aspects of their development. And that's where the ITT coordinator comes in. Then there's the general mentor. So your official name is general mentor, because you're not a lead mentor, so the government's called you general mentors. And you're obviously the day-to-day person that looks after the trainees. And then there are associate mentors. So these are people who aren't the actual mentor, but they might be involved. So it might be that the trainee is taking a couple of their classes or lessons a week. It might be that an associate mentor is someone that can offer a different type of support. But we wouldn't give associate mentors formal training. There's someone that you'll be guiding to support you, and they would feedback through you as well. So they're all the people that tend to be involved and in developing the trainee through the program. Just to give you an idea of the scale of things, how this works, the TES Institute as the provider, they're the ones that are accredited and provide the course and the mentor training. And then we're a lead partner. And as you can see, one of many lead partners, Teaching Kent and Sussex Teacher Training, but we are the biggest by quite some margin. So that's quite helpful because it means that your voices are heard by the provider really loudly. So if we've got things that we need to change or we'd like to adapt, then we're really keen. And we do have forums for mentors to come back and feed back into the programs. But it gives you an idea of the scale of things. And overall, there's about 500 trainees, which makes them the biggest skit in the country. And then we're hoping to continue that and keep growing next year. This is a bit about what TES do. So TES are a global company. You've probably heard of the TES supplement, the Times Educational Supplement, and the magazine that goes with it. So that's a bit, and also TES Jobs you would have heard of. So they do obviously the education sector jobs, and schools always come. Sadly, we can't get you a discount for advertising jobs as a school, but it's still nice to know that it's part of something big. They offer all sorts of school solutions. Some of you will have class charts in your school. They own that. Obviously, the online teaching resources, lots of which are free. And then at the side, the TES Institute, which is the bit that runs all of the schools direct and apprenticeship programs. So we're going to focus in a bit on the mentoring role now. And there's a couple of background things that you might want to look up. And I will send a link, this PowerPoint out, which has the links in it. So you'll be able to click on these and go directly to these two documents. But we are fully compliant with both the initial teacher training and early career framework. Now, you might remember if you trained with us last year, it was the core content framework. Well, guess what? The government changed it. So with no notice, they just kind of changed it and merged the two. We did tell them, that probably the two things should be together because it's not working very well having them separate. So they put them together. And then luckily our course has all been updated so that it's fully compliant with that. We're also looking to become an early career teacher, an ECT provider for next year as well, for September. So this current lot that are about to go through in September, starting September, we should have an early career teacher program for them as well. And then there is the ITT criteria. So they're worth looking at because it just says what mentors' roles are, but everything really in the training will cover those. But they are there if you want to look at the underlying research. These are all the roles of everyone outlined in a bit more detail. And we've already talked about what everyone's roles are. So we talked about the lead mentors from TES Institute. We've talked about the lead mentors from Teaching Kent and Sussex Teacher Training. We've talked about the general mentors. We've talked about the pathway tutor. We've talked about the ITT coordinator and what all of those roles are. But we're going to focus in on your part. But it's quite a useful slide to show you what everyone does. So I know that many of you will be worried about, am I doing the right thing? Am I actually doing this right? A lot of our new mentors are concerned because they think there should be more paperwork and things, but actually that's not what we're after. So the first thing you have to do is to understand the statutory guidance. So that's why I've put those on the previous slide. Then there's 20 hours of training, which sounds quite extensive. And that's a national requirement now for all providers. But those that have been working with us so far will know we've been doing that for the last 3 years anyway. And the way that TES have done it is quite clever. So you've got your session on Thursday, which takes up a large chunk of that. And then each term, you'll be meeting for a term meeting for the term ahead for an hour and a half, no, an hour and 15 minutes of what will next term be. So what's the focus for training? So you can't really get too out of touch because it's regular and it allows you to stay up to date with what the program is intending. On Thursday, I have been told a full schedule of training with all the dates will be presented. And then I will also send that out as well so that you've got all those dates in your diary for next year. There is some funding available, so your schools will be able to apply to the Department for Education retrospectively, sadly, for funding of at least £846, I think it is, for mentoring. What they do with that is up to them. And so we'll be sending details to your school about that. You will have the minimum thing for your trainee on a weekly basis is that you need a 1 hour meeting per week with them. Now, ideally, that's in the school day, but we do know that's not always pragmatic, and it might need to be after hours for it to work. But please do protect that when you get it. One of the problems we get with early mentoring is where the mentor meeting becomes a kind of chat for 20 minutes, as and when you can. But actually, the research shows that although the trainee might be quite polite about that and quite happy with it, the progress of the trainee is limited if that's done. So we do want you to sit down. And what do you do during that meeting? Well, you don't need to come up with your own program, because the trainees will have a training plan, which we will send you a copy of, a digital version. And it's a book, an A4 booklet, which says week by week what they're doing. And guess what? Each week it's got discuss with your mentor. It tells you actually what to discuss so that you're aligned to the program. I'll talk a bit more about alignment to the curriculum in a minute, because what does that mean? During that meeting, you discuss that, what's in the booklet, the training plan, and you also talk about the observations that you've done that week. So you'll do a 1 hour observation. You may probably not need the whole hour if you're focusing on a particular area, but certainly you'll be observing and feeding back. It might be that that's not you that does that. Let's say that someone else observes them. It might be someone else that does that feedback as an associate mentor to the trainee. In the first couple of weeks, if they're an unsalaried trainee, then they won't be observed because they won't be teaching, but they will be observing other people. So there will be a discussion between someone they've observed or you and them about the observations they've undertaken. There are forms for both of those two things. So for the hourly mentor meeting, I'm going to get this right, it's a DPR form, I think they've called it for next week, but you don't fill that in. The trainee fills that in and you sign it, because we don't want mentors doing unnecessary paperwork. And we also find that trainees, when they have to write their targets in, it helps them to listen and digest what you said. So when you sign it, you can check what they've written is actually what you discussed. The actual only form you need to fill in, or have someone fill in each week, is that lesson observation form. That's called a CPR form, classroom practice reflection form, not resuscitation form, hopefully. And that form should be given to you by the trainee, or if you're like me and you've got terrible handwriting, you can get a digital copy, but you give it to the trainee and they upload it. We do not give mentors a login to the area for all of the work for trainees. And we don't do that because you're lovely people and you work too hard and you'll create chaos and loads of workload for yourself. So the tutor will monitor the work for you and they'll advise you if there are any issues. That way you don't start spending time looking back through stuff and comments that you don't need to. So the tutor will look at those that are uploaded each week and they'll alert you if they're not there as well. Sometimes trainees get behind and don't upload them. They'll alert you and copy the trainee in so that you're aware if they're not uploading those. You will be a phase or subject expert. So if you're in a secondary, your trainee's probably in the same department as you, we're hoping. And also in primary, that you would be a Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2 specialist with your trainee. We'd expect you to engage with mentor training. You're here, so that's great, or you're watching it on catch up. And the idea is to make sure that you're fully informed to support the trainee. And you'll also oversee the associate mentors supporting the trainee, as we've discussed already. So that's the role. There's nothing hidden. There's no reports to write. You don't have to do termy stuff. The trainee might ask you to look over things when they're doing their assignments. They might ask for some advice there, but we don't expect you to fill in anything for them or write that you've signed off stuff. Second placements we get asked a lot about. So for second placements with other programs, you probably have to organise that, or your school does, but we organise that in Teaching Kent and Sussex Teacher Training, unless your school has got something they would prefer to do themselves. If that's the case, we actually do send a form out to all schools, to the ITT coordinators in late September, to ask about arrangements that have been made. And we send another one to trainees to ask them as well about what they'd like for the contrasting placements. There are experience days throughout the whole of the course. So, there's if you're a secondary trainee, they have to go off to a primary school to the Land of Little Chairs for a little while. And if they're a primary trainee, they have to go to the Land of Big Chairs, which is much funnier to watch as they arrive at secondary schools, to see the big kids. But the but we organise all of that as well. So you don't need to organise that either, but we will keep you informed about it. So there's lots of experience days, special needs days, English as an additional language, and all the days are flexible as well, so they're not fixed. Now, you might have heard about ITAPs. So ITAPs are now mandatory. You have to do 20 days of ITAPs, which is intense training and practice weeks. Now, we've looked at these. We trialed one this year. Thank you for everyone that was involved in those back in September, if you remember the one that we did on behaviour. There are 4 for next year because we have to. But actually, we found they really did give the trainees a really lovely way to focus on a particular area of practice. The dates will be shared shortly. They're shared out through the year, spread out through the year. During the ITAP week, your trainee will be on a Monday doing a study day with TES Institute. On the Tuesday of that week, they will go to one of our hub schools. We will organise this. And in the hub school, they'll undertake some training sessions with mentors in that school and ITT coordinators in that school. And then they will return to you for the remainder of the week on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to undertake some in-school activities, which they themselves will be able to tell you what they are. We will send you full details about ITAPs as the time gets closer. And also, some schools might say, do you know what, we'll run the ITAP within our own school. We don't want them to go to a hub school. I know some of you have got up to 8 or 9 trainees in your school, and you might say, do you know what, we'll just run it internally, in which case that's fine, and we will give you the materials to deliver, but it means your trainees won't be out of school. So ITAPs are coming too, but again, we'll organise those and then advise what you need to do and when you need to do it. Hopefully, we'll keep in regular contact with you. So the ITT and mentor curriculums. So this gives you a bit of a background about how this was all stitched together. So there's a lot to learn. And what TES have done is they've put together training for the trainees with a core curriculum, and also a curriculum for mentors as well, to make sure that they've got the skills to support. And we'll keep you up to date with how the curriculum's moving, because through the year, the focus of the curriculum is a bit different. So it's divided into 6 areas, which you'll see there in the wheel on the right-hand side. And on the left, and I'll zoom into this in a moment, is the curriculum. But hopefully what you'll see is the colours in the wheel for each area. So you've got your things you'd expect: assessment, how pupils learn, inclusion, behaviour, those sort of things. You'll see on the left that each term, and I apologise here, depending on where you are in Sussex or Kent or London, we have 6 terms in Kent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But in the rest of the world, in lots of the world, we have 3 big terms divided into half terms. So can you see that the language there says term 1, part 1, term 2, part 2, term 2, and TES work like that because they're a national provider. They actually work with term 2, part 1, term 2, part 2, term 3, part 1, blah, blah, blah. So we do try to put both into any emails that come out from Teaching Kent and Sussex Teacher Training to help you. But you can see that as the year goes by, the curriculum focus changes. So in the olden days when I trained, we observed everything. When you observed a trainee, you observed everything, and then you fed back on everything. And we don't tend to do that now. What we tend to do is have a focus for that observation. So the first, as you'd expect in the first term, it's behaviour for learning is the first thing that we do, behaviour management and learning behaviours. Now, it doesn't mean when you're observed that you can't make notes about the other stuff, but it shouldn't be that you feed back on everything in great detail, because we can't fix everything at once. If there's something urgent that you know is from a different area of the curriculum and needs to be fixed, then use your professional judgment and by all means set a target for that area. But if you're thinking about doing inclusion or differentiation, we haven't taught that till later in the year, so they've not done any online sessions, so it probably likely will be weak because they don't have the underlying theory and pedagogy to be able to do that effectively yet. So it helps if you're feeding back in the area that they're also learning as we go. In the training plan, when you get it week by week, it will tell you what the focus is for that week and what they're learning. So that might help you as well. So that's how the curriculum's put together. It's a spiral curriculum. So we keep coming back to different topics through the year so that we keep building in little bits. There are bits of behaviour for learning they're not going to get to start with, but later in the year, they will be able to understand as they develop their kind of inclusion and assessment for learning practices. I'm glad that Kelly did the thinking on this because it's very complicated. How do we deliver this to the trainees, this curriculum? It's a blended learning program. So it works that we have the in-school learning and practices. So that's the ITAPs and observing people in schools, expert colleagues, collaborative teaching, modeled good practice by you, advice from you, and the opportunity to practice and develop in the classroom. We have the training plan in the online sessions and the pathway tutor. So that's where they get their knowledge. The way I like to think about it is that on the Monday or the Tuesday, when they're doing their study day, they're gaining the theory, the pedagogy, the theory. And then the rest of the week, they're kind of putting it into practice. So you're doing that with them. They're asking you questions about it. You're having discussions about it. You're sharing your learned experience. And on a Wednesday from 2 o'clock, we have a partnership or provider face-to-face workshop. So that's the so what session. That's the what's it like in practice. So you might well have learned about Rosen Shine. So what does that mean in practice? And that's what we do. So on the online session, we come online. Now, if you're having school face-to-face professional studies sessions, we don't mind them attending those. Just bear in mind that it might not sync perfectly. So we will share our face-to-face training program with you very shortly. But it might just mean that what you do in school doesn't align perfectly in terms of timing, but that's fine. It's all extra training they're going to get. And then there are specialist teaching experiences as well that that underpin this curriculum. So that's where they have the special needs days, the English as an additional language visits. So if you don't have more than a couple of languages spoken in your school, we'll send them to a school with 40 languages spoken and show you how teachers deal with that. So the trainees get to learn that. And that's the primary and secondary visits as well. So that's how we deliver the curriculum for the trainees. And then the support for mentors in school. So you'll be setting weekly targets for development. That's done on that weekly form. But again, the trainee will write that because you'll have a discussion and come up with targets. We'll give you some training on how to write the targets. The tutor will be monitoring them. And if they're not quite right, they'll contact you and just say, have you thought about writing it in this way? So that they help to make sure the quality of the targets is effective. So, a target shouldn't be, go and get a list of all the SEND pupils in your classes. Whereas it should be about go and explore how you might support a child with this particular learning need. So they're more about targets rather than tick lists. You'll help them plan actionable steps towards meeting those targets. So, okay, there's your target. How are you going to do it? What do we have to go and do then? Focus on low stakes practice. And what that means is practicing small things. So rather than, okay, we'll see how you get on in your next lesson, putting all of that in practice, it might be that you say, okay, in your next lesson, focus on doing this better. So you can't fix everything straight away. Help them to practice one small thing. And it could be that, you get a trainee to practice speaking aloud in front of you when there's no children around, or that you demonstrate how to not turn your back on the class when you're teaching from the front, on how to, you might model actual planning of lessons of how to make it so it's not so teacher-led, so that actually the pupils are learning things and finding themselves out for themselves. Don't assume trainees can plan. They probably can't to start with. So you might actually have to literally model, sit down and talk through how to write a lesson plan and how to plan a lesson. And they'll find that really valuable. Engaging with expert colleagues' observations and feedback. And, I've gone forward on the screen, which is not very helpful. And developing developmental models of good practice as well. So that is helping them bit by bit build up their repertoire of how to deliver aspects of their teaching toolkit in the classroom. How does it work in practice? Modeling is really, really important on your part, and also explaining that you're going to model it. So, if a trainee says, oh, I'm really struggling with X, Y, or Z, well, you can say, well, I will demonstrate that in the next lesson. And then you'll feedback to me on how I did that. So that mentor role is vitally important to our trainees moving forward. And you might also need to speak to associate mentors and say, actually, their focus for this week is this. So can you, demonstrate that in the lesson? I can see Michael typing away there, so I'm guessing you're typing in the chat. A bit of a closer look at that curriculum that the trainees are doing, so you can see how it works and what's done each term and what the key things are. So in the first term, it's all about induction, it's all about professional practice. So we're during induction, which is all day on Saturday for Kent trainees, and then on the 18th for Sussex trainees, we really hammer home professionalism. What do we expect in our profession? Why is it a profession? Why is that important? Why do we have to defend this profession, and how do we do it? What does it mean to be a teacher? We've found that since we've done that, the behavior of trainees, some of the, immaturity sometimes, some of the things that they bring from other professions that might not be appropriate in teaching, we found that those things are less of an issue this year. So we do spend a lot of time of that during induction on those things. So they're the sort of things that when they arrive, you should be addressing really quickly. So, lateness or poor communication. Maybe their attire is incorrect. Maybe the way that they speak with other people isn't quite right for the profession. Bring them up, make sure you raise those things. In term one, focus is behavior management. And we've got a whole ITAP week to really hammer home on that. And you've got a pathway tutor visit there as well. Term one, part two, or term two for us, then the focus is looking at subject knowledge for teaching. And you can see how each term the focus changes throughout the year. This is included in all mentor training, and it's in the mentor handbook, and it's in the training plan, and it's in the program guide as well. So you'll be able to look at that in more detail as well. How do we deliver the mentor curriculum? So the MTED. So that's done through face-to-face training. So you're here for this part here, which develops your knowledge and understanding of the ITT ECF, not called the core content framework anymore, remember. The research base and the curriculum focus for each half term. So you don't have to remember it all at once. We do remind you each term. And there's a lovely mentoring newsletter that comes out every term, which summarizes everything from TES Institute. And face-to-face training also develops the mentor's understanding of the provider's program and provides a community, which is quite nice because mentors get to meet up with each other and share ideas virtually, of course, unless you've got other mentors in your school. And then there's the online self-study modules. So these are the bits which are asynchronous, I think is the posh new term for this, where you don't need to do it at the same time as other people. On the right, all of that face-to-face training is recorded if you need it to, but it really is advantageous if you're there at the time. The online study modules, I'll show you how to access those in just a minute. And they will take you through what you need to know. Those of you that have got mentoring experience, so those who've got a lot of mentoring experience with other providers, there will be an audit undertaken in September to ask you about that. Details will come out on Thursday, and that will mean that there are some parts of the training you will not need to engage with because you've already got mentoring experience. And if you've worked with us before, you actually, as a mentor, then you don't need to undertake the introductory training. You just need to go to the termly updates because you've already done the MTED qualification. That's called MTED level 2, they call it. So things to do before September. So I'm going to put this in the chat room. So this is is that what I'm in the chat room? Nope. I need to just copy this from here. Sorry, I need to go to a different screen. This is how you log on to the asynchronous part, to the online learning modules. So I'll put this in the chat room. Bump. Bump. There you go. And you'll need to register. Now, the sooner you do that, the better. We've already sent your emails over to TES Institute. So what should happen if your ITT coordinator or ITT coordinator is registered with us is that the system should pick up the fact that you've then joined and I'll show you how that's done in a moment. And then it will assign the courses to you, if you like, the online learning. So please use the email address that you input on your registration form with TES Institute. By the 14th of July, you'll be enrolled on TES Learn to your ITT mentor course. So you should have MTED level 1 will appear in there. That's how you know you've got it. Now do alert us, because we'll get back to TS if that isn't in there by the 14th of July. Then you'll be able to complete the online induction sessions, which are accessible via Test Learn. So there's an introduction, there's mentoring in ITT part 2, and then there's mentoring in ITT part 3. So they're going to be available to you. You can do them as and when you want in preparation, and will really help. Now, the other thing you have to do is attend the part 2 of the induction. So that's the session on Thursday after school, and that will introduce you in. That will be the start of the actual MTED qualification training. And that, as I say, there, the 11th, and we've sent details. Now, if you don't have details of that, I did send it out earlier to all ITT coordinators again, and I will send an email out following this session, probably tomorrow morning, with all details, including how to access that, because it's another online session. You need the link for it. So don't email me directly. I'll send an email out after this using the emails that the ITT coordinator sent over, okay? If you don't have that by tomorrow morning, then do email me, because it means you're not on our list. Sometimes ITT coordinators do a typo or something on the email addresses. Now, before we go into general questions, and I'm sure there are some that Mike hasn't been able to answer in the chat room and has collated, this is a short video to show you about how to do that sign up on the system. So hopefully the sound, give me a thumbs up, Mike, if the sound is working.
In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create your TES Learn account. So first step is to go to TES Learn, and then
Or is it stopped?
we want to click on this Join Us for Free. It'll ask for some basic information about you. I'm going to put that I am a teacher in primary. You can put your curriculum.
Remember, I am going to send this out.
What year you started teaching. Once you've got past that, it'll ask for some basic account information. We need the first and last name. Without this, you won't be able to enter TES Learn, and it will bring up an error message for you. The rest is fairly simple in terms of putting your email address in, the username you want to use, and your password. Once you've got all that, you should be able to click the register button, and it will take you to this page where you can choose your profile picture. I'm going to leave mine as default. Click I'm done, and this will take you to TES Learn. So this is the TES Learn homepage where you will see your programs. We can only add that once you have got to this page, created your account and got here. We will then be able to enroll you, and your programs will appear here on the left.
That's lovely. Seema, great question. I think you trained for a SEMA. So yeah, if you've already got a TES Learn account, you shouldn't need to start a new one. As long as it's the same email address, because it might have been, if you were a trainee, that it's your personal email address. You might need a school-based one for this. If it's still the same email, then it probably should be fine. We've got lots of questions to look at here. So I'll pick the last one up by Simon Stevens. I would advise, Simon, for ITC coordinators to create a TES Learn account as well, because then they can see what the mentors have been doing on there, or see what the courses are, so that they can refer to them. It's not mandatory, but I think it's they'd probably enjoy seeing that. Michael, before we open to general questions, are there any things that have come up in the test that are key points that you've answered that I think are worth highlighting?
Not a huge amount of questions, but there are some people who say that they can't attend the training on Thursday for X or Y reason. So in that situation,
recorded, that's fine. It's been recorded. The recording will be sent out. I will do that. Tess will do it too, but I will send it out as well. So we kind of attack you from both sides if we can. So there'll be a recording that you can watch. It really is useful to be there at the time, just because you can do this and ask questions.
We appear to have technical difficulties on TES Learn at the moment, so we will find out about that.
Well done, Tes. I'll tell them that when I meet with Kelly. Will we get sent a link set up to our account? Will we get sent a link to set up our account? So what will happen is you're going to log in and create your own area, and then by the 16th of July, when you go back in, you'll see that the course is already there. So you should just see it in there. And if you don't, let me know, and then we'll chase the IT team. Any other questions, Michael, that are in there? Has anyone else got anything else they'd like to ask?
I don't currently have any more questions in there, but please do, everybody, ask away.
What does the audit of my previous mentoring, who does it? Oh, so you do it. So basically what happens is Tes will send out an audit. You would audit yourself, and then you'll assess whether or not what you need to attend. So actually, are there bits where you've done different types of coaching training before, and actually you don't need to cover that stuff? So there are bits that you'll want to do where you'll just understand how the test program works, and getting used to that. I may have missed you saying this, but, well, I can't see it now. It's whizzed off the screen. But is the MTED training compulsory? I've done some mentoring with you before, but a couple of years. MTED level 1 is. So if you've done something recently, it might be enough. Wait for the audit, I would say. But we do need you trained so that you know that's what the MTED is. It says, yes, you're able to mentor and that you know the program. I have a personal TES account. I would say yes, create one with the email that your ITT coordinator would have given us, your in-school one. When will you send out the PowerPoints from yesterday's and today's and the recordings? I actually sent out the PowerPoint from yesterday's session to ITT coordinators this morning, no, this afternoon, because that was for ITT coordinators. And you're welcome to watch it. There's nothing secret in there that we're spying on you or anything. And from today's session, I'll do that tomorrow, just so it takes time for the video to come through from Zoom. And I'll send out all of the documents from the session as well. Claire said you didn't receive it. Okay, I'll look at why that is, Claire, and I'll send you a personal as well. That shouldn't be difficult. For ITT coordinators, what training do we need to complete? Well, you need to attend the ITT coordinators meetings. I'd also advise you to go to the Thursday session, just because it will give you a really good idea of what the course is, and you might find that pretty helpful. But actually, the rules are the ITT coordinator sessions. We have about 3 of those a year, so we don't burden you with meetings if we can help it. You're very welcome, Ricardo. Any other questions?
Yes. Can trainees, the keyword here, trainees, be left on their own in the classroom during the first term?
Great question. Yes and no. So if they're an employed trainee, absolutely, because they're an apprentice or the school's direct salary, they're employed by you, so they should be on their own for their teaching. That's fine. If they're an unsalaried trainee, they should never be left alone to teach. So that's because they're not employed, basically, for you to leave them in the classroom, and therefore you're not insured to have them lead children. But also, it's not very good practice. So there should always be a teacher, ideally the mentor, for every lesson that they're delivering. Next, there's another question there about second placements. So if they're an unsalaried trainee, it's for term 3 in Kent money, Kent and Sussex. So that's for 6 weeks. If they're an employed trainee, then it is a 4-week placement this year. We have reduced it because we're expecting them to attend ITAPs, which is a few extra days out of school. Will there be information sent out on the minimum number of observations, where observations forms go? Are they uploaded? You give them to the trainee, Josh, so you don't need to upload them. Trainee takes care of that, and it's 1 per week. Is what we would expect. You could do more, and you would advise, but don't need paperwork for that. Why do we need paperwork? Just 1, so that we've got a weekly track of how they're getting on. Someone says that they're guessing the program for the year will be outlined in detail on Thursday. Yes, it will. and how much teaching, etc. Yes, it will. And also, I will send you all a copy of the program guide, which has the detail for every program on what timetable weightings look like. It's on about page 25. So I'll get that out to you. And did I say that the IT coordinators should also register with Test Learn so you can see progress? You can't see progress, but what you can see is just what the mentor training is. So I would say if you're an IT coordinator, it's nice to get that so that you can see what the mentors are doing as well, if you want to refer to it, but there's no requirement. Can they teach with a TA present but not a teacher? Yes, they can, but if you want to, if they're stronger and you want to step back a bit to see how they get on with just having the TA in there and be around, that's not a bad way to do things. You just need to remember that that if they're not so strong to start with, then they'll need the teacher in the room while they're embedding those basic behaviours. But yeah, that is as long as you've got a member of staff in there. What we don't like to see, and none of you would do this, is where you have an unsalaried trainee. And there's a schools we've worked with before in the distant past that will remain nameless, who will put trainees into classes and basically leave them to teach, sometimes with a TA, sometimes with not, which is not what the unsalaried trainees are for. For the employed trainees, that's absolutely fine because they're employed by you and ready for that. What does the final assessment entail? Oh, Tom, you're getting well ahead of yourself, but good question. It's there's not much to do for that day. The tutor comes in to do it. You'll be needed for about an hour of that day if you're a mentor. ITT coordinators will be needed for about 15-20 minutes. It's a celebration of the trainees year. We never have a final assessment unless we know they're going to pass. So it's looking at all the evidence that's been put together on the online system by trainees through the year without a final portfolio. Of course, we don't observe them teach on that day. Because why would we? You've already observed them so many times, it seems an unnecessary pressure for them. And the idea is that we will, the trainee gets to really express how they've met the teacher standards by that point. If we have a salary, thank you, Mike, you've answered that one. Thank you for those that have to go. Delighted to have you here. Right, because everyone seems to be having to leave, what we'll do is we'll call a close to things, and the questions seem to have slowed down. Thank you so very much for working with us. We can't say, we really are held together by our mentors. You're the people that do all that groundwork with the trainees and put up with them on bad days and good days, but you're not alone. We really are here to help. Hopefully, if you've had issues with trainees, we've been out to see you in the schools. We've got a team to come out and actually visit the schools. If you're a new school to us, we will be coming along with our new team members to introduce them to you in your actual schools and meet the trainees and support you. And if you're, some of you have got large numbers of trainees in your schools. If you're secondaries, we'll be coming to see how the trainees are settling in and make sure everyone knows what they're doing. It's a bit, it's that thing that when it's a new program, if you're a new school, some of you will be a bit, well, we're so used to doing this. Is this even right? Because it can feel a little bit wrong because you've not having to fill in so much of the paperwork and so on. So, you're not on your own. Do get in contact if you've got any concerns. If you leave them, they only grow, and we prefer to get things sorted quickly. We'll let you go. You've done very well. It's 57 minutes, not bad, just less than an hour. Go and enjoy. It's raining in it, so go and enjoy the British weather. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you all.